Welcome everyone to the first of what we expect to be several virtual exhibitions of artist talks and tours based on shuttered shows due to the COVID pandemic, or shows that we had planned for this period that were unable to open and are being postponed until we can safely return. A few little housekeeping notes just to start. Uh, you may notice sound in the background. That is rain and thunder. This is part of the exhibition's experience and part of the artist's installation sound effects that we are including as we go through the entire space. You may also notice that things may be a little blurry. I'm going to go ahead and just give us a little bit of a frontal view of the gallery to start. You may notice that things are a little bit blurry, and this is because we are working on the limitations of what is Zoom. Zoom does make things a little less crisp than they would be if you were looking at this virtual exhibition on your own equipment. Although the quality of equipment can vary and can also affect the quality of what you might be seeing here as well. For a full and best experience of interacting with this virtual exhibition, you may request a download of a 1 gigabyte file that could be done with Mac, Windows, or VR goggle version that we can supply you upon request. To request that, please email us at artgalleries@cpp.edu. We will be having a Q&A at the end of the artist's talk and tour. So please mute yourselves in the meanwhile, so that we don't interrupt the artist's talk. Please enter any questions that you may have in the chat, and my assistant Mac will be reviewing those and bringing them to the forefront at the end of the artist's talk. If there is a particular artwork you wish to ask about, please refer to it by describing its location and being either in the front gallery, the front gallery left, or front gallery right. And I will enter the space right now so that you can see that. So there's the gallery that's to the left and the front gallery that's to the right. And then there is the corridor gallery, which you see here, and then the back gallery that is to the far end and to the right. So if you do see anything you want the artist to talk about during the Q&A, please mention what space it is in and ask your question accordingly. Maybe you can point out which piece you're interested in by describing it. Okay, we apologize in advance for any questions that are unable to get answered within the time allotted. That's just the nature of these types of events. So we'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but please forgive us if we are unable to do so. This event is recorded. You should have gotten notification that this is being recorded upon entry. And we will have a recording of this event available at a later date. We do have editing, processing that we need to go through, as well as captioning. I believe that you can do closed captioning if you are hearing impaired. There should be a button in your dashboard to allow you to see the closed captioning. Okay, so I would like to introduce a few very important people. I'd like to first start with introducing Molly O'Connor, who is one of my gallery assistants, one of my gallery student assistants. She's an architecture major, and she, along with the help of a faculty member by the name of Kevin Moore, who is a professor in the art department, helped us develop this. He built the actual Kellogg Gallery space for us. And then Molly created all of the art objects in the space as realistically as possible to simulate the gallery space in this virtual world. And she animated everything as well as created pop-ups and instrumental videos that go along with some of the instrumental pieces, and making those active and making the space able to be interactive. So I would like to bring Molly forward. Molly, would you please say hello and say hi, wave your hand, and say hello to everyone? Maybe, I don't know if we saw her. Maybe say hello. Say, I'm Molly.
Hello.
So Molly is like I said, an architecture major, and she's been with me for a few years, and I think she's done a magnificent job. Spent hundreds and hundreds of hours building this virtual exhibition. Um, I also want to thank the rest of my staff, who without them, we wouldn't do a lot of what we do around here with the galleries, and especially now during this period. Everybody's been really great and supportive of all of our endeavors. So I just want to acknowledge each of them, and please, each of you, go ahead and say hi and wave, say your name, okay? So that people will see you. First I'll introduce Macario.
Hello, I'm Macario.
And Grace.
Hi.
Esteban.
Hello.
And Katrina.
Hi.
And Emily. Emily, I think you're muted. There you go. Okay, so and these are all architecture and virtual communication design majors that work with me. I also often have art history majors, but they're all on the verge of graduation, so I do not have any art history majors with us at this time. I am going to just take us into the show now and introduce us to the concept of the show by reading the artist statement that we have on the wall that is what the show is about. Bronxville, St. Broxville Wood, Into the Thicket, opened on January 1st, 2020. Was supposed to go through March 26th, 2020, and of course the pandemic hit, and we had to shutter our doors a couple of weeks early. But the show is still up, which has allowed us to do live video tours, and unfortunately, the public cannot come and see the show in person, but that's why we have this wonderful virtual exhibition that we've created. The show concept is about nature. Nature can at once be beautiful and dangerous, gorgeously sublime, uncompromising, and inconsistent. With one hand, it provides us with oxygen, water, and food, and with the other, it drowns us, eats us, and wipes us away with disease. So, how prolific that we are sitting here today in the middle of a pandemic in a virtual world, reading a text panel that is sitting in an art gallery where the artworks are all sleeping, and the doors are closed. We do hope to enter. When we do come back from the pandemic, we may be able to have a couple of weeks where we can reopen the exhibition, and that's our hope. St. Broxville Wood, Into the Thicket is an immersive, interactive installation by Jennifer Gunlock, Hilary Norcliffe, and Katie Stubblefield that evokes many of nature's unpredictable behaviors and dwells on our human response, from awe, celebration, and song, or story creation, to domestication, callous disrespect, and destruction. The artist's work further includes collaborative assembled sculpture and works on paper combined with wood elements, found object, ceramic and video projection installation, constructed interactive and instrumental sound installations. St. Broxville is a fictional amalgam of the artist's cities of birth, which are St. Louis, Bristol, and Knoxville. St. Broxville is a swamp, a forest, or surreal setting for fractured memories, prophecies, or visions. In this exhibition, each artist explores her own complex attitudes towards the forces of nature, bringing contemporary methods, curiosity, and whimsy to her work with one of nature's most valuable age-old gifts, wood. And Immanuel Kant says that out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made, which is quite a lovely and poignant thought about wood and about how we use it. Another thought that another couple of words about wood. I very much am a wood lover. I love wood furniture. I love handmade wood furniture. I love the feel of wood, the smell of wood, and yet I have an allergy to wood, which is very amazing. That's a whole other conversation. But you know, as a lover of wood, you know, I'm very interested in that idea, and I started looking up words about like what is a word for the lover of wood, and a few things came up in my search. Xylophile is an animal that lives in wood, but it refers oftentimes to termites and to beetles that live in wood. So not too sure how that works unless we consider ourselves, you know, an animal like those. Um, a lingrophile is a wood lover, so that's a pretty close term. That's lingrophile. But you know, if you love wood in its ambient environment, a solanophile is a lover of forests, and an arboreophile is a lover of trees. I also like Fred Rose, a good artist friend of mine. I'm not sure if he's here today, but um, he said to me once that as a woodworker, as a woodworking artist, he says that because you know you love wood, you work with it, you live with it, it lives around you, you use it, it's a part of you, it's a part of your life and your everyday. The fact that we, you know, take a tree, a natural being in our environment, and we break it down and we destroy it, we kill it, and we cut it down and break it down into parts that we then use, like 2x4s or you know pieces of wood to create a piece of furniture. He says that that is, you know, that in a sense, because we are killing this being and using it for our own pleasure, that it makes us more of a necrophiliac. And so he associates that idea of necrophilia with the lover and the user of wood. And of course, I think this is something that the artists are going to talk about how you love a tree or the forest or wood for its natural components and what it gives to us as human beings. But also, we love it, we use it, we destroy it, we kill it, we burn it for our own ability to survive and our own shelter and our own enjoyment, really. So, on that note, I am going to take us around the space to the front gallery. And this is the front gallery right. Oops, sorry. And we are looking at the first piece that we're going to talk about by Katie Stubblefield. So I introduce Katie. Come on in and talk about your piece, Comeuppance.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie, and I generally my artwork is about chaos, order, and entropy, the area between. And Comeuppance is the piece that you're looking at in the center of the space here. And that is an example of how I look at order, entropy, and chaos in nature. I grew up in the woods in Tennessee, and that's always had a profound impact on my work. I'm infatuated with the irregularities of nature. Earthquakes, fires, floods, king tides, freezes, hurricanes, droughts, and tornadoes all influence me, especially tornadoes. I have been through a lot of tornadoes, and I'm fascinated by the sensory overload of tornadoes. They aren't a typical Southern California weather system. So I thought I would explain just a little bit of what the sensation is like with a tornado. The skies literally turn green. The breeze drops down to nothing and the air smells like rain. The air pressure drops and your ears pop. The static electricity makes the hair on your arms stand up and on your scalp stand up. It's very real. And then the tornado hits And the best way to describe that is as a ball of wind that's tossing everything in the area around. And it literally does sound like a freight train is coming through. It's very, very loud, and it feels like it's going to last forever. But then it stops abruptly and it becomes absolutely quiet. And then I see what nature is truly capable of. And it always leaves me wide-eyed. It's truly sublime. I go out of my way to take pictures of this kind of thing out of reverence. I know this isn't normal Southern California weather, and no doubt I'm romanticizing it because I don't go through this all the time here in SoCal. If I did, I don't think I would have the same affection for tornadoes. Here, they are the other, a fiction, and they only exist in the woods of St. Broxville. So this piece is named Comeuppance. It's a direct result of my obsession with tornadoes. It is named Comeuppance because every good fairy tale, including our woods of St. Broxville, has a villain, and the villain always gets what they deserve. In our woods, this is both a tree and a tornado. It hangs balanced on slender willow toes, barely grazing the surface of the floor. It's trapped in a fairy circle and it mirrors itself back on itself in black still water pools. It's made of twigs, tree branches, fabric, rebar, clothes hangers, resin, yoga mats, and brambles. It's a suspended piece hanging from the ceiling, and it hangs about 16 feet off the ground. It's surrounded by a circle of crushed eggshells. They're almost powder at this point, and a dozen hand-built ceramic flat bottom bowls. On a side note, the ceramic pools and crushed eggshells that hold this tornado in check are both a clockwork and a compass. There's a dozen bowls, and they're calibrated to true north. It's a timekeeper and a road sign for entering our woods. Related to comeuppance, we have brambles are over to the right there. And those are scattered throughout the gallery. There's smaller works that kind of function like microclimate creatures, and they're built from the refuse that's in evidence after a storm passes by. Things like computer parts, piping, umbrellas, roots, underwear, photographs, vines, coat hangers, embroidery thread, electrical chargers, anything that the tornado picks up and bundles up. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. And here is just a view of the room, the whole room, because of course we are only talking about select pieces that the artist chose to talk about, but I just want to give everyone a moment to just get a moment to see the other pieces in this space by the other artists. Okay, so we'll move on to the next space. Just a quick view here. All right. And so now we're going to go to the left gallery, the left front gallery, and we'll introduce Hillary.
Hi, so I'm Hillary, and the take that I kind of decided that I was bringing to the show was more of a narrative one, really interested in storytelling, stories that contain trees, fairy tales, and thinking about the point of view of the tree in those stories. If you could imagine being the tree in Little Red Riding Hood or Hansel and Gretel or Sleeping Beauty's Thicket, what's it like being the Thicket? So taking on the tree's point of view and thinking that the pieces that I'm choosing to talk about today are ones that are kind of giving the tree a voice. So this piece that you're looking at is an installation called Household. And I increased its real estate value by putting an awesome view out of its window, which is Jennifer's piece in the back there, Habitat, which ties in beautifully with some of the concepts, because as you can see, she's got these giant trees and they're kind of being taken over by man, and this lumber is emerging and crawling out of them. and we're not quite sure what state of life or death the tree itself is in. So just the idea of creating lumber and the massive amount of lumber that we use for all of our house building is incredible. I think in Canada right now, I'm originally from Canada, and the clear cutting that's going on still on the west coast of Canada is something like 3 to 4 times what is actually sustainable as far as renewable forests go. So it's kind of devastating that that's still happening. One of the stories that I refer to, not in this piece, but in a couple other pieces in the show, is a story called The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, which is a children's story you might be familiar with, where a tree and a boy have a dialogue, and the boy has a lot of needs and keeps asking the tree for things, and the tree just keeps offering and offering and offering of itself until he's an old man and the tree is nothing but a stump. And in that story, at least the tree has a voice and a choice and chooses to be this endlessly giving thing. But the idea of clear cutting kind of flips that and makes it this horrible massacre that the trees have no choice about anymore. So there's that. And then there's the idea, kind of like Michelle was introducing, about just thinking about lumber as being a dead tree. We're building with the dead carcasses of these things that we've cut down, and making the sacrifice of the tree, or deciding that it's going to sacrifice itself for us to build our homes, our nests, our places of survival, and all of our furniture that goes into it, our things of daily function that we need, or we think we need, and we think we need to make it out of dead trees. But also what I'm doing here is taking those elements now and trying to give them a voice. So I've built a series of instruments. And the first is I guess we can talk about the 2x4 phone. So if you see hanging on the left side of the house, there's a series of 2x4s that are suspended, and they're all cut to different lengths, and they all play a different tone. I tried to create 2 octaves worth of notes. I'm an amateur musician myself. I'm really interested in the color of sounds, and wood has all kinds of beautiful sounds it can make. So maybe Michelle can play the sound of this.
Just takes a second.
So it's they're very they're big pieces, so they have a deep sound to them. The other thing, so the piece is called Household, and it's holding some other pieces of furniture that have been turned into instruments. So she's going to try sliding over to any one of these, but there you can see a chair in the back. So all of the furniture is furniture I found on the curbside in my neighborhood. You can almost think of these instruments as the third incarnation of the tree. So they were first cut down, turned into lumber, then formed into furniture and used how somebody decided its life as a piece of furniture was over. And then I've grabbed them before they head to the trash bin and now given them a third life, a third incarnation as an instrument, and letting them, I don't know, I guess in a sort of romantic way, thinking about giving the tree back a way to remember its sound in the forest, or giving it a voice to speak to what it once was. So that's called the time-in chair, and this piece is called the drawer-phone. And then you see in the back the bed, which is called a bed balafon, based upon an instrument called a balafon, which is like a marimba that has a xylophone keyboard to it and piping underneath it that resonates the sound deeper and louder. So all of the piping, every part of this is made from something recycled. So the tubes underneath it are old plumbing pipes, PVC pipes, and bottles and jars, just water bottles and things. These are the bed knobs or the mallets that you use to hit them with the keys. So it's just a way for me to give the tree a voice and sing a little bit in its third life.
Okay, so now we will hand it off to there's a little bit of game control inexperience that I have. Unfortunately, I'm not a big gamer, but I'm learning as I go here. So we're going to talk about introduce Jennifer to talk about her work.
Hi, this is Jennifer. So the piece we're looking at on the wall is an 11 by 15 foot mural on 18 sheets of rag paper that I call Urban Interface. In my work, I take photographs of trees, of architecture, just various things when I'm traveling or wandering around. And I collage them and other rice papers and things to make kind of a hybrid tree or landscape where the natural environment and the built environment are fused together. So it's this awkward relationship between nature and humanity and how we interact with it or upon it. So let's maybe step back for just a moment, yeah, to see the whole. So this piece, Urban Interface, was made in 2015. It was part of a project I was involved in called Fires of Change. These scientists in Northern Arizona and fire managers wanted artists to talk about their relationship with the landscape. Wildfires in the Southwest have been burning just, exceedingly hot, and so they bad press, and we just have these fire superstorms these days. And so fire managers are trying to reestablish a healthy ecosystem. Fire is an integral part of the Southwestern ecosystem, but because of the human imprint, the way we've been manipulating the landscape over several decades, most especially with fire suppression, the forest has built up extra litter, too much dense plant growth had built up over the decades. And so when a fire does hit, it doesn't just trim back the forest, but it just can completely obliterate. And so fire scientists, fire managers today are trying to, help reintroduce prescribed fires in order to kind of cut back the litter and help reestablish balance in the landscape. So for this project back in 2014, 11 artists were sent to this fire science workshop. And we spent several days in the Grand Canyon and in Flagstaff and got this Fire Science 101 introduction into what they do to try to establish this healthy ecosystem, and then the kind of political and social issues that they deal with. So we had a year to make a piece, and then we had a group exhibition the following year. And so in my piece, Urban Interface, I was reflecting on how humans had manipulated the landscape by suppressing fire, and then now humans are going back on it to fix its own problems. So it's all about our manipulation of landscape for worse and then try for better. So what I did, so this is a ponderosa pine forest in Northern Arizona. And then the little skinny cell phone tower-like objects are burnt aspen trees. So these were images I had taken while I was there in Arizona. And so in the piece, I have rice papers and also photographs of things that I shot while at the workshop. Some of these kind of striations, like in the bottom foreground in the middle there, that's close up of a headlight of a fire truck. So we can zoom in a little bit. So we have a fire truck. I have actually bits of photos of tools that were used in the fire truck. And I have blistered bark of burned ponderosa pines. And then also from back in LA, I have photos of like windows of skyscrapers looking up at underneath a fire escape in downtown LA. I even have Watts Towers in there that I kind of buried in on that piece on the right. And so, yeah, it's about our imprint on the landscape, our manipulation of it for, for its worse, for its better. And it's just, yeah, it's my work in general. It's all about kind of this Western civilization sort of domination imprint on the landscape. So that's really all I have to talk about with that piece.
That's wonderful, Jennifer. Thank you. So far, so good, everybody. I think we're in good shape here. We'll go to the next space, which is the corridor gallery. You'll see that there are more of Jennifer's pieces here, three-dimensional pieces. And
Is it me next?
yes, Hillary, you are next.
Okay. So this little trio that we're looking at, and kind of decided to go from really big to really small. This is called the Unsuspecting Visitor series. And one of them, there's one with an ear, one with some eyes, and the third one has got a nose kind of shape to it. So they're called Hearing You Walk Through the Woods, Seeing You Walk Through the Woods, and Smelling You Walk Through the Woods. The original inspiration for these pieces was actually, I don't even know if Jennifer know this, but it was the 1986 movie Labyrinth with David Bowie. And those wonderful little creepy puppety things that popped out of the rocks and out of bins and things in the movie. They were just so creepy and funny at the same time. So that was really kind of what was on my head as I was playing with these. In my mind. I guess they also became sort of the three wise monkeys, the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, which is more, I think, about turning a blind eye to things, whereas this is more about not being aware of the tree seeing you walk through the forest, and the unawareness of you're being watched, you're being noticed, you're being smelled and heard. So that was the thinking as I was making and playing with these, and very much as I'm making, I'm just playing and seeing what evolves. But in post-reflection on this and having done a little bit of reading about the science of forests, which is really interesting and has really been blossoming sort of in public awareness over the last 5 or so years, but in forestry science, it's been kind of something that's been growing a lot over the last 30 years or so, which is this much better and just a beginning awareness of the amazing communication system under the forest bed between trees. And ironically, these pieces are all a combination of some section of roots along with some kind of fungal creature thing, and the ears, the eyes, and the nose that I've brought together. And that is exactly how the combination that is going on with under the forest bed for trees to communicate with each other. They have this amazing collaboration with fungi. It's called the mycorrhizal network. Mushrooms have wonderful, skinny, thready, long roots to them, and they absorb nutrients a lot better than tree roots do. So they latch onto tree roots and collaborate with the trees, and the trees provide the fungi with sugars that they can't make on their own, and the fungi give nutrients from the soil back to the trees. And there's this amazing back and forth and helping that happens. But the other thing that happens is that the fungi will connect trees together in networks. So, and not even just within a single species. It might be a fir connecting to a birch, and one tree through the fungi can share chemicals and nutrients and talk to each other. So they're finding amazing things going on, like a tree that gets infected with a bug can communicate through chemicals to other trees to tell them to boost their immune systems to protect themselves. Or a mother tree or a hub tree that's a bigger one that's getting more sunlight will send nutrients over to the saplings that are in the shade and not getting as much direct sunlight on their own. Or a dying tree will send sort of its reserves over to the younger ones that are growing up around them. So it's just really interesting learning how trees actually do talk to each other and how trees are not isolated, that they are really these complex webs and networks all connected through the roots and the fungi networks underground, which is another reason why the clear cutting is so devastating, because they're slicing out not single trees, they're cutting up a network that is now broken. And when you go to replant, those trees aren't connected to the network anymore. So they are weaker, they don't have the support system that a naturally grown set of trees would have. So that inadvertently became a little bit of the story here, the underground story.
Okay, thank you, Hillary. So now we're going to move back and over. You get an idea of proportion of those pieces. They're quite small, but they're very detailed and lovely. And you can see the ear, the eye, and the nose in those lovely pieces. So now we move on to Katie. Get you in the right position here. Okay.
Yeah.
Katie.
So this suite of woodcuts is called Thicket. And they were inspired and carved in the woods after a tornado pushed through my hometown where I grew up. There's almost a dozen carved wood plates that are used in each print. And they're all single editions. I used a cold pressed magnolia paper and black, white, silver, and pewter water-based inks to create the value spectrum in the work. And I hand pressed them using a steel spoon on my living room floor. Over the last year, I've been reflecting on the strange relationships that these works have with the pandemic. I've always thought that the works were linked to the fable Sleeping Beauty. As the princess and her town slept, the thicket grew up around the kingdom, and the thicket protected and hid her and the town from the world until it was time to be woken up again. St. Broxville is also in kind of an odd state of suspended animation. We celebrated the show's opening, and shortly after that, just like the rest of the world, the Kellogg shuttered. And I think of these prints now as more a view out at a window in the Kellogg Gallery, looking at our closed up world, and with a thicket covering everything, waiting for the moment that we can reawaken. Eventually, St. Broxville and the Cal Poly Pomona system, all the colleges and everything will open up, and we'll remove the thickets and all of the artwork, and the white walls will be revealed, and all the potential for the next exhibit will pop up. So.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a spin around this part of the room so that you can get a feel for some of the other pieces that are in the space. This is another one of Hillary's pieces. And some more of Jennifer's sculptural pieces. And in fact, this is what we're going to talk about next. Right, Jennifer? Was this
Yes.
one? Okay.
Yeah. This is the one. So yeah, this piece standing right in front of us is called Building Boom, Roosting Site Number 1. I built 3 separate sculptures, and they were specifically for this show. I'm known for working 2-dimensionally, collage and drawing in 2-dimensional format. And I wanted to put something physical in the space for this show. I had this idea of creating a forest that you literally have to weave around, walk through, interact with. And so this was a challenge. It was, I was starting from zero. I didn't have any prior sort of experience or journey in this format before. So it was long going. I think I started this about mid 2018, and it took well over a year to resolve the first one. And then the other 2 kind of came together more quickly. So with the first one, I remember I was sitting in my bed in my little tiny apartment, looking across the room at my bookshelves, which are these old wine crates and fruit crates that I've had as bookshelves for since college days. These cheap little things that I moved from apartment to apartment. And I'm staring at them and I'm like, I have a new life for you. I'm going to recycle them. So And to this day, my books are in piles. They've not found new homes yet. So I took these crates and I stacked them, screwed them together, and then did my collage and drawing on top. So again, I'm weaving plants, tree limbs, and architecture all over it. And I had literally inside, there are bits of moss, there are twigs, there's a giant tree branch. I don't know if maybe you don't have another angle of it, of this big tree branch that kind of weaves up through the middle of this piece.
I can try.
Okay, it's okay if you don't, but this one really tall tree branch is about 6 feet tall. It's something that I had found in Idlewild. It's like a manzanita branch.
It good? Is
Yeah,
it this
that
one?
thing in the middle. Yeah,
Okay, and it goes all the way down.
yeah. So that was something I'd found up in the mountains, the Southern California mountains. Manzanita is like a major part of our mountain ecosystems, and so that is something I've kept with me over many years and moved from apartment to apartment in some decorative manner, and has been my Christmas tree at times. So it has a very personal aspect in this one. I see these towers as like skyscraper condominiums, buildings, and also I call it, roosting site, because I think of like birds roosting in trees or even cavities of buildings, or mice in the walls of an apartment. In Western civilization, we try to create these very sterile environments, very ordered, very controlled, and try to get rid of the termites by tenting them and just keep everything ordered and clean and clear. But wildlife is going to come right back in, and so there might be little birds that create a nest under the eaves of your roof, or mice in the walls, rats running over my roof, or possums. So it's again this interaction between Western civilization and nature. Building boom, also that term references just the burst of just buildings and real estate. Growing up, I grew up in Southern California. This is, practically almost a native here. And so over the decades, just watched suburban sprawl just spreading like a virus over the landscape, and our wildlands kind of being diminished, and with suburbs with apartment buildings and houses that all look the same. And also just in recent times, like say within the last 5 or 10 years, even downtown LA, watching it sprout and grow with like a lot new building. And so, yeah, building boom, and then the rise of real estate, and then you've got the whole economic issue of rents going up and property going up, and so there's like a whole other story there. What else? They also, they can reference trees, human-built environments, and also natural things that termites invade, rats live in, birds nest in, things like that. So, yeah, it's about a coexistence of humans and nature, and it always changes shape. As things, plants and animals, some grow, some recede, others grow and kind of take over and recede as well. So it's ever changing. Yeah, there's I forgot where those branches came from. I think one of you girls gave me those 2 big ones.
I think you also had some things that maybe I'm wrong, but correct me, please. That I think you grabbed some branches from Cal Poly, from the campus that has a lot of wooded areas. I don't remember specifically this one was one that you did that with, but I know that there was other pieces that you did.
Yeah, I don't think it was this one, but yeah, that happened a lot. Actually, this show, we collectively had 2 years to build on this, and it actually stemmed from another show the 3 of us did back in 2017. So this was like an evolution of that show. And so while we had our own individual pieces, we worked collaboratively. We grabbed tree roots and things from each other's houses and shared. And so when we talk about some of the other things, you know, that might pop up.
Yeah,
Like that big bundle knotted thing up in the ceiling is a grapevine from my house that I gave Katie over there.
right. That is the collaborative effort of all three of you, and also using some wood from the Cal Poly campus.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to do just a quick little, before we start with this piece, Jennifer, let's
Okay.
just do a quick little look around of the space, just so people get a feel for how the placement of things and then how things look in that space. And yes, we can definitely come back to the River Run piece. I just wanted to mention that the piece that the show that the three of you did collaboratively in 2017 was part of the Long Beach Pump Festival, is it called?
Yeah.
I was so happy to see that happening. And was that the first one that there was?
First pump?
Yeah, the only one, or was there others before that?
Do you know?
I think was it the first?
I think it's the first like that. Yeah. They may have done other kind of events, but that was the first sort of citywide.
It was the first one like that I had heard of. And I was so excited to go see it. And I have there's so many artists that I have tapped into because of that. And I don't know if Betsy Laurel Hall is here. Yeah. I know she was one of the curators and organizers. She's a good friend of mine. We went to a grad school together. And if she is, I hope that we'll be able to say hi. But you know, I can't wait till we could get back and do things like that again, because it was so exciting. Just get chills thinking about it, about how much fun that sort of idea of pop-up galleries in these old warehouses, giving artists a place, these wonderful large spaces that are have all kinds of little idiosyncrasies to them, but an artist is able to take it and make it something. And that, I thought, was just so incredible. And I just loved that. And I can't wait till this is all over and we can go back to that. But that's how I met you all. Well, actually, I met Jennifer about 10 years ago now, it's been. But, and, you know, I was so glad to run into you during that time. But I got to meet her other two cohorts. And I was so happy to meet all three of you and have that, see that wonderful Timbra show, Timbra, playing off of the words timber for wood and timbra for sound, and musical sound. And I was just so glad to meet you all. And it's really at the crux of how this show came to be, even though this has a lot of differences from that. I mean, you've evolved and done new things. And I'm just so happy that we were able to do this together. So I'm going to just go ahead and stay straight on here on this piece. And I click on it. When we click on the pieces, these pop-ups appear. And the pop-ups have the really higher quality resolution images to them. I just can't zoom into them. So when you want me to zoom in, let me know. This is just the higher quality version. We could start here, and then you let me know what you want me to do.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, this is Habitat I made in 2017. It's about 7 feet tall and it's about sort of a square. This I made in 2017. It was actually for an exhibition at the Grand Library called Man Made. It was like an all-women show about architecture and nature, the human imprint. And so what I was doing here was I was kind of referencing the LA cityscape, very generally, not a specific neighborhood or anything like that. But it's about how in urban design and decor, we pull out the native plants and then pop in some imports and other decorative things that don't actually belong there. LA, Southern California, we have native palm trees, but they get taken out and removed, and then we bring in something from some other part of the planet, say a palm tree from South Africa in its place.
Brazil.
Or Brazil, yeah. It's like, come on, And also I have this really negative attitude about green lawns, fertilizers, and mowing, and trying to keep things all ordered and together when a native plant landscape like Hillary's front yard is absolutely gorgeous. You know, you have wildflowers and leaves and things that kind of, they change shape over time, over the seasons. So yeah, this is about that. So it's in it. So I have like 2 palm trees and kind of no species specifically referenced here, but some of the images. Yeah, why don't we zoom in? Like say that tree trunk in the middle. Some of the photos in here are actually include bridge construction here in Long Beach. There was a really large bridge that was under construction for like 5 years. It just seemed forever. And so I wandered under it a couple times, like in 2016 and 2018, to take pictures of scaffolding and all this kind of stuff. And I've been using it repeatedly, and I'm still using it. So that's all over the place. Some of these kind of orangey lines are actually from Chinatown in downtown LA. There's this really bright orange security gate in front of I think it's a gallery or a store on Chungking Road, and I just am in love with the photo of the color of that thing. So there are photos of all kinds of places. I visited New Orleans back in 2010, and that's in here. So like your oaks are in here, and I think there's a little building from, you know, the French Quarter in there. But also I have Clifton's Cafeteria, which is, you know, a 1930s cafeteria in downtown LA, and it was boarded up and under construction. So I brought that in there. So yeah. So I think that's actually in the middle tree. There's this kind of rectangular orangey thing, sort of at the top of that tree right there.
At the top. Oh, at the top.
Yeah, top leftish. You know,
okay.
That's a little piece of Clifton's Cafeteria.
Okay.
It you know, it doesn't. I don't need people to actually know where all these images come from, because I like to take them out of their context. But to me personally, it's almost like a little diary, a little map of my travels, because I have memories embedded in all these little things. So yeah, no imagery I use was found from somewhere else. I'd photographed these personally. So yeah, is there anything else I need to talk about with this piece? I think I basically referenced it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to Hillary's work next. We go back to Hillary.
I just want to give a big shout out to Molly for her amazing rendering of these things. I haven't tried 3D modeling very much, but the household piece that we first looked at was something I actually built 3-dimensionally, digitally first, just to have a sense of how it would look and function in the space. So I know how hard it was to build that thing, and she did a much better job than I did of constructing it.
Well, I do have to say, yes, the amount of effort that Molly put into this, the number of hours, the energy, and the just learning by doing, because they didn't know how to do any of this when we started. And it's really been an evolution because of the pandemic. And frankly, I think, Molly, correct me if I'm wrong, did we start this around in the summer?
Yeah, I think in like August or July.
Yeah, I think it was like as soon as we were done with the student show that was also done this way, that Kevin helped us with. And we started right away. As soon as we were done with the student show, we started doing this, and I assigned this one to Molly, and the Gina M show, which we're going to be talking about next month, to Grace, and they've done a magnificent job. So thank you for acknowledging them on that. Absolutely. It's a tough thing to do, and I was very picky about everything, and they know it, how perfectionist I am. Strive towards perfection, knowing we will never achieve it, is like my saying that I put upon my staff. And you know, it's a lot. I know I ask a lot from them, and they've risen to the occasion. So
no, we were all just completely blown away when we first saw this digital rendering. So amazing. This piece, so this one, because it's in the back corner of the gallery, maybe gets a little less noticed, so I decided to highlight it today. This is a word, a real word. It is a Welsh word, although it has been brought into the English language. I believe the correct pronunciation is Hoyle, although people will also say Whill. It is made of roots. So I do not have a wonderful, loving relationship with every tree. And this particular tree has been a bit of a bully in my life. It is a tree that my neighbors have that has crawled under my driveway and destroyed it. So it's the journey of figuring out how to respect them and their tree and still repair my driveway was a tricky one. And it happened in the time period where we were developing this project, so it fit right in. So I did end up repairing my driveway and cutting out a lot of roots, hoping that it wouldn't lead to the tree falling over or anything bad, which it didn't, luckily. But in the process, we ended up with a lot of great roots. So every bit of root material that you have seen in the show and that I've used, and Katie's used some of them, and they've ended up in all kinds of places, have come from under my driveway.
That's so great.
When these came out, the wonderful Julio, who was pulling them all out all on his own, I said, don't throw them away, please save these things, because there were so many good shapes that came out, and some of them came out, they looked so calligraphic, and some of them just really looked like letter forms. And there were a few that I'm like, okay, there's got to be a word in here somewhere. The tree is speaking again. It's saying something. It's been punching at my driveway, saying it wants to get out, and now it's like trying to shout something at me. So I was just rearranging the letters I could find, seeing if I could make a word out of them, and flipping through the dictionary, looking for possibilities. And this is what I hit upon. And it's a really interesting word. It's used a lot in Welsh just as a way of saying goodbye, like bye. So that kind of works as the end of my driveway, the end of those tree roots, and kind of the end of the show, thinking it was the end of the show, but it never really ended. But it also has a much more complex meaning or set of meanings to it as well, which also tied in nicely to the show and to the voice of the tree. So apparently the origins of this word lie in the idea of the sail of a ship as being a way to steer the ship, but then it's been adapted to being kind of a way to steer your mood. So, somebody's mood as the course path of life. And it has a lot of meaning. So the idea of temper, mood, frame of mind, nature, disposition. It also moves into the idea of religious fervor and the cadence of the voice as a preacher would have as they were preaching. So there's kind of a musical quality to it as well. And, it's kind of summarized as being this intangible quality of passion and a sense of belonging that isn't easy to translate, but sort of sums up a Welshness, whatever that is. So wow. I'm not Welsh myself. I do have a lot of British connections, but I just thought all of that kind of felt really great for the quiet voice of a tree, kind of having a lot to say, and we're not listening very well. So we need to.
That's wonderful. And if you see notice a difference between the virtual exhibition and the photograph that was just in the pop-up, it's because of the lighting and how the shadows have an effect on the wall as well. So just in case anybody's confused as to why they look different, but that's just the nature of using the lighting and the photographs that we had available. So we happen to be in the dark part of this piece. I'm gonna hand it over to Katie to talk about this video installation, Flow By.
There it goes. It's lighting back up again.
Wonderful.
So this piece is called Flow By, and that's a reference to a Thomas Wolfe writing that I'll read later. And it's an installation about nostalgia. I have a lot of fond memories from my youth, and this is one of them in my that I think of. It is a series of tree stumps that I borrowed from Hillary's neighbor, after a big storm, they cut them down. And so we used those for our seats. And there are a bunch of quilted tree ring mats that you can sit on the floor or sit on the stumps to watch the video piece that's projected on the back wall. In front of the video piece, there are a series of ceramic bowls sitting on the floor that are filled with water and designed to reflect the images on the video. The images are of summer storms. The summer storms in the South are pretty extraordinary. As part of my growing up remembrances, there were lots of storms, and looking out my bedroom window was one of my favorite things to do as a child. And so I mimicked the exact same view, childhood view, out of the exact same window, and videoed mini storms. Michelle, how long is the video? It's a loop.
An hour.
Yes, it's like a significant amount of time. We shortened it for the virtual exhibition so somebody could sit and actually watch about 10 minutes of it.
Yeah.
And, forgive us, but we edited it in a way so that you would get a variety of the different times of day. So that's why it started off dark, because it did have the nighttime rain. And then we have a flash of lightning that we did make sure that we included, as well as, daytime, different times of day, and the stop and the start of the rain, as well as the birds chirping when the rain stops. So
it's a very, and that's the sound that you're thank you, Michelle. It's a sound that you hear kind of in the background and on our virtual exhibit. There was some thunder rolling earlier, and you just kind of barely hear it when you're in the gallery until you actually come into this space. And it's designed to be as if you're sitting in a fort in the woods, literally, my 12-year-old self sitting in the woods in a fort, watching it rain all around me. My fascination with the woods and wild weather has always been touched by poetry. And there's three in particular that I remember growing up that were really poignant to me. And my folks were professors in the little town that I lived in, and both taught English. So I grew up hearing poetry all the time. And Emily Dickinson, she brought me to celebrate nature with the reverence of a religion. And Henry David Thoreau made me small in the vastness of nature. And Thomas Wolfe reminded me how quickly time could pass. This is called Flow By. And it talks about how my memories have been polished and romanticized. I see it now and look at it, and I glory in the majesty of a really wicked storm. At the time, I was scared to death. And if I lived there again, it would not be funny. It would not be beautiful. It would be terrifying. But Thomas Wolfe really played into this piece. This is the quote that I pulled for that. But why had he always felt so strongly the magnetic pull of home? Why had he thought so much about it and remembered it with such blazing accuracy? He didn't know. All that he knew was that the years flow by like water. You can't go home again. Thomas Wolfe. So, I just want to add my thanks to everybody at Cal Poly, the Kellogg Gallery, for letting us experiment and drag really odd materials into your space and kind of glory in nature in a very collaborative way. I want to thank everyone. Michelle, thank you for all the staff support and the kindnesses that you guys have provided us.
Well, it's my pleasure, and again, I'm in awe of each and every one of you, and your thought processes, the quality of work, what you all do, and the fact that you all took. I don't know. Curators don't always do this, but for you all, I felt like I needed to give you guys the space to be creative and just do what you got to do. And I know we talked at the beginning about some concepts and some ideas, and I had faith in you all that you were all going to do some amazing work. So obviously that is, kudos to you all for, emanating that type of quality in all of what you do, that I, recognized it, and I could trust that you all were going to do something that was amazing. And I'm so glad that we were able to do this. I'm just saddened by the fact that it closed early, and that's why we're doing this too, is just to honor this, all of your work, and to really, take it, to enjoy it in a whole different way than we would have otherwise. So, in some ways, this is the new archive. We're recording this event. This is the new archive. When the show is gone, it's gone. It's ephemeral. We don't always have the funding to do catalogs for shows. More often than not, people don't even buy books anymore, it seems. Even though I'm a book lover myself, they just don't sell when we do them, and we spend all that money to do them. So, to me, this virtual exhibition space, it's not, it in no way, shape, or form takes the place of actually seeing the work in person. I'm the first to say that. The art historian in me, always says, the slide on the screen is not the same as the painting in the museum. Sometimes we look at things in a certain way digitally that, gives us our own frame of reference perception about what we think we see. And then when you see it in person, it's something even greater and more wonderful because of that three-dimensionality. And again, not to overemphasize this, but when all of this is over, I think we're going to appreciate a lot more what it's like to see each other in three-dimensional form and to see artwork in its truest form. I think that brought us to the end of the artist selections for the talk. I'm gonna put the highlight now onto Mac and see if there are a few questions. I know we're going overtime, but I'm not worried about it. I was actually expecting this to go over 1 o'clock. Usually these type of events are about an hour and a half. If you have to go ahead and go. And we're recording this if you'd like to request that. But let's go ahead and open it up to questions. I'm going to introduce Matt Macario.
Hello. So I first want to say thank you to all the guests for all your compliments for the artists and for the gallery. One question, if you have any more questions, you could go ahead and submit them now. But one question we have for all three artists is, these works all resonate so well together. The connection and communication between them is stunning. How did you all begin to develop the storyline / concept and put the show together?
Who wants to start?
Oh gosh. Wow. Jennifer, you start. No pressure.
Okay.
I think it just started with trees.
How did you all meet? I think that's something that not everybody knows.
Well, So we had to rewatch the video of our art talk a whole year ago to remind ourselves, what were we thinking? We all went to grad school together at Cal State, University Long Beach. This was about 20 years ago. And then we all went our separate ways. And I remember, we remembered a year ago how we reconnected. Like, I lived up in LA for about 10 years, and then just by some freak of nature, I ended up back in Long Beach. And then a mutual friend of ours was in town visiting, and then so a bunch of people were invited for a reunion, right? Yeah,
it was at Hillary's house.
Yeah, at Hillary's house.
Yeah.
And then so Katie has a studio, a shared studio space, artist co-op in Long Beach. And then, so there was a exhibition there. So they have a space in their artist co-op where people can put up shows. And so we all met there and we were chatting. And then Katie says, there's kind of an opening in October. This is back in 2017. Yep. Guys let's throw some stuff on the wall. And then we were approached by Betsy Laura Hall about Pump.
Yeah, which happened to coincide with our October time slot.
Yes.
It was very good happenstance.
Yeah. So then we're like, oh, we can't just throw something on the wall. We have to think about this now.
And
so
we
we're
had
trying to.
we had all summer to think about it, and we had like 3 or 4 months and no interruptions.
Yeah,
It was bliss.
it's a great play space. And I think we just sat down and tried to find any common ground between us, and the tree came up as a center point for all three of us. And that was the beginning of the conversation.
And the challenge with that pump show was that it specifically had to be interactive. So that's when like Hillary really went to town with the musical instruments,
those
and
were my
we
first
needed things.
instruments for that.
Yeah, things needed to be touchy and interactive and
Soundy.
soundy.
Speaking
And
of speaking of soundy, do you mind if I click on this really quick?
Kind of quiet.
Yeah, I raised the volume a little bit. I'll play it again. So Hillary, maybe you could mention what that's all about.
That's that piece is a cast of my face. I always wanted to try casting my face. And I decided to do it in swim cap with a snorkel to be able to breathe in the casting material. It turned into the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. And I don't know, it was just like, again, like so much of this, just sort of playing, moving things around and seeing how they're going to connect with another thing. And she just sort of fell into this river of wood. So, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West dies if she touches water. So I decided instead she was in a river of wood. So maybe she's underground in that mycorrhizal communication network somewhere, like sending bad messages to the fungi. I don't know.
And the piece of wood in her mouth is a snorkel so that she can get air. Because she obviously, I guess, needs air. The wood is for air. And then, you know, I'll also point out there's like an eyeball in this piece of wood over here too, which it just brings it all to life as well. So there's this whimsy, this fairy tale influence too. I'd like to interject a question, if you don't mind. Could you talk a little bit about the influence of whimsy and fairy tales and nursery rhymes in your work? Because there was a lot of that in your work, especially Hillary's.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very interested in children's books, children's stories. I have a child who is no longer a child, but she was a child for a long time, and I read a lot of books with her, and that was really an art form that I had forgotten about since I'd grown up, and that I fell back in love with again. And this is the Jack and the Beanstalk piece, and the giant feet. So just kind of tapping, since we needed to make, I mean, this is such a huge space for us, it was very overwhelming to imagine trying to fill it. So using, for myself anyway, some kind of something to hang my ideas off of became digging into stories and thinking about the trees in those different stories. So, you know, how does Jack get from down below to up above? Well, it's going to be a tree or vine of some sort. So that tree played into that, and these shells were from an older piece. I recycled them. One was very rough, the other was very refined. So just, I don't know, so much play. So it was stories in mind, and then just playful use of the materials and seeing how things might be hybridized in ways to create something new. I think so much the idea of new is overrated, and new is just some hybrid of other things that already exist.
Oh, a quick story about this piece you're looking at right now. Hillary, it was like Christmas 2018.
Oh, yeah.
She made these little beautiful panels and gave each of us 3. So it was a Christmas present / challenge to make pieces on these 3 panels specifically for the show.
We
all really did different things.
Very different things.
Very different.
Well,
Hillary turned hers inside out and made them
speaking
like
of that,
boxes.
Right here, yes.
Yes, that's Hillary's on that side.
I'll just go ahead and go to all 3 of those while Macario asks the next question. How's that? And I'll go to this is Hillary's, and I'll go to Katie's as well.
So we are still waiting for more questions. We do have one question, I think, for Molly. They say, great show. I love hearing from the artist. How was the virtual exhibit made? Is it a digital architectural model with 3D photography of the art added?
Okay, so I think this is a great question. So Molly, do you mind if showing your video so that you can pop up? I think for some reason you're hidden, unless I'm mistaken.
I have my video on.
Okay.
Yeah. I use Rhinoceros 3D, which is usually like an architectural modeling software, to make all the meshes, and then I would apply just the 2D pictures onto all the meshes to make it look 3D. And then I imported all that into this software called Unreal Engine, which is mainly used like for video games and stuff. And that way I was able to like program so a person could actually walk through the exhibit and, you know, click on whatever art piece, and add all the lighting and the background music and stuff. Yeah.
So it's a very long and tedious process, but an amazing, amazing opportunity. And I hope it helps Molly in her future career as an architect to have develop this skill. And again, a lot wouldn't have been possible without Kevin Moore of the art department, who also assisted them in helping them through all the little difficulties that they ran into. And also just kind of developing the whole idea and pushing, doing all the research and pushing us towards the right software to use to be able to do this.
Thunder. It's raining hard in the back right now.
Us Southern Californians don't get this. It's so rare. So I'm so hungry for a rainstorm, thunder, lightning.
I miss it too. I feel like we haven't gotten enough rain this year.
Yeah, no.
Macario, I'm sorry. Do you have any other questions, or was there no other questions from anyone else?
That is all for now. I'll keep monitoring the chat.
Okay. Well, if there aren't specific questions about the artwork or the virtual exhibition, we can. It is about 1:20. I will stop sharing my screen, and we can open it up to say hello to whoever's out there that's participated today.
I see all my friends. Thanks for coming.
Yes.
Hi, Mom.
So if you hit the gallery view, if we hit the gallery view, we can see people, as long as people put up their video. Anybody wants to join us on video, please show your faces, because the sad part, I have to say, about the virtual experience is that you don't get the immediate reaction of the people that are watching. So it's just so nice. There's Gina. We're going to be seeing Gina next month doing her show. She's got a backdrop of her show. That's going to be launching next month. But it's so nice to see so many of you. There's some familiar faces here. So thank you for joining us.
Colleen looks cold. It's snowing in Texas.
Yes, I'm out painting in the blizzard. So happy to listen to you while I'm here.
Oh my God.
So thank you everybody for being here today. And again, if you have any comments, we'd love to hear them. Like, what are your thoughts on where could we improve an event like this for the future? What are the good, the bad, and the ugly, do you think, of our presentation today?
Actually, I have a question for the artists again. Sorry. I was wondering, I know you mentioned that you met when you were in grad school together, and kind of reunited within the last few years. I was wondering, when you were in grad school, was your work all pretty similar? Had you collaborated much back then, or interested?
That's a really good question, Eric. We actually didn't, we just barely overlapped. That's the weird thing. We knew each other in passing. Like, I was graduating when Hillary was like full blown into her schooling, and then Jennifer was just starting, and it was like this weird thing. We all had very different work then.
Mm-hmm. We still do, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think just collaborating on this project, we found connections that weren't there previously.
Mhm.
So it was very alchemical, you know, because we had so much time to work together on it.
Mhm.
You know, like for the first show back in 2017, we had the entire summer to build something on site.
Mhm.
You know, we didn't have it pre-decided. We just sort of, somebody throws something up here and somebody kind of reflects on it as they're building across the room, and it evolved. And so this show, we had, 2 years to kind of work behind the scenes and share ideas and share literal materials, a lot of back and forth. And so there was more coalescence that really happened organically.
Mhm.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. If anybody else, please, this is a great opportunity to jump in. It's a small group, so it's kind of cozy, so feel free.
Hope to come and see you, Jennifer.
Hi, Bonnie. Well, Bonnie is from my Fires of Change project back in 2015.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here.
And she's, calling in from Michigan. We have people across the country, and I think we did have someone from across the water. I think Owen was on earlier.
Yeah, from Ireland, right?
Yeah.
And also I want to welcome Mariona Barkis, who's here because we're working on a future virtual exhibition, and we're in the process of doing some 3D scanning. I think we're on some of her work so that we can create a more realistic version for an upcoming show that's called Black, White, and Shades of Gray. And it's all artists that use either black or white or shades of gray in their work, but are also dealing with sociological, sociopolitical issues and social engagement and social justice, female rights, people of color rights, and so on. So that's an upcoming show. It includes Stephen Greenfield, Mariona Barkis. I see Brian Ida there. He's part of that show as well. So it'll be a really fun thing to hopefully get going in the coming months. Any other comments anybody else wants to make?
How long is the show going to be up tentatively?
Oh, there's no answers to those questions, unfortunately. I wish I had a crystal ball. Once this is all over, my objective is to reopen both spaces at the Kellogg and the Huntley being Gina M's show. You see Gina M on the screen as well. And have both of those shows at least open up for 2 weeks is my objective, my hope, but it all has to do with timing. It all has to do with when we come back. We're going to have to do a little bit of mitigation when we come back and check on things and kind of clean things up. I imagine things are going to be a little on the dusty side because, usually when we're there, we're cleaning, but obviously we're not. So we're going to try to, and that's my hope and my main objective. A lot has to do with the timing of when we come back. There's no guarantee of anything right now in the future. Just can't guarantee the future right now. But we're hoping that to do what we can. Well, again, feel free to interrupt me if necessary. If you do want to make any other comments. I just don't want to forget to say that we are recording this event. And we will make it available in the coming weeks. If not, perhaps give us a month or so, because we have a lot of other projects going on right now, and it does require some editing, closed captioning, and so on before we can launch a video. If you don't care about that and you want to ask for a copy, you can ask for one via email at artgalleries@cpp for Cal Poly Pomona.edu, and we'd love to get you a version of the recording. If you want a downloadable version of the virtual exhibition, that's also available. It's a 1 gigabyte file. We have it in Mac, Windows, and VR, which you could use with VR goggles, virtual reality goggles. And if you have that type of equipment, and again, you can request it at artgalleries@cpp.edu. broxville.edu. And we'll give you access. The problem with these sorts of files is that they have to live somewhere, and it's very large files. You have to do 3 of them for each exhibition, based on what I just mentioned. And you know, a lot of people aren't willing to download a 1 gigabyte file onto their computer. Of course, you could always delete it once you've played around with it. But it is one of the challenges that we're finding, is that it's very hard to store this type of thing. So we're asking for people to just on request only for right now, until we can figure out a platform or place to put it to make it more accessible. So the next event, I just don't want to forget, is going to be a month from now, March 19th, with Gina M. Hey, Gina, please say hello. We have the Huntley Gallery's virtual exhibition of Through the Toy Shop and Behind the Curtain, the artistry of Gina M., which is, we will be doing a very similar type of event with Gina talking about her work. So please join us. That Eventbrite ticket is already available if you'd like to join in a month from now. And we will do a tour and talk of that virtual exhibition as well. So it is exactly 1:30 right now, which is exactly about how long I thought this would last. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you taking a Friday afternoon to spend it with us. And I hope that you really, really enjoyed it. Please take yourself off mute and give a little applause to the artists.
Yay!
And to Molly.
Yay!
Thank you all. It's just always nice to get that feedback from each other.
Okay.
Good job. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Hillary.
Yay, team. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yay, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful, safe weekend. Wear your masks, wash your hands, socially distance, love each other, and give those that you can a hug, because we need hugs right now. All right, everybody. I wish I could hug you all. Love you very much. Thanks.
Thank
a
you.
Bye.
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 Bye.